I'm back yet again with another team's breakdown. Today, I'm breaking down the Chicago Cubs on today's action packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we are your number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it at Matthew_Ane. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit the bell below, subscribe to the channel, and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you may listen. It really helps out the show. And also, too, we want to hear your feedback. So hit us up on there. If you want a little bit more than what we offer in this 30-minute podcast, check us out on Subtext and become a member of the Diamond Club. You'll get way more than what we offer here, plus a full list of rankings from Redraft, Dynasty, and so much more. Check us out on there. You can get started this season with big returns on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. All right. So we're breaking down the Cubs today. This is going to be a good episode. I'm pretty excited. There's a lot of names on this team that I think have some fantasy relevance, some fantasy disappointment this season. And we'll dig in and we'll kind of go from there. How about that? So we'll start off with their record at 83-79. Team as a whole looked pretty good. They could have been very dangerous down the stretch, truthfully. I think if they were able to get everything together, they probably would have made a push at some point, but it was just not enough time, I feel. They were what? 1, 2, 3. Three slots behind and about 6 games out of the last wild card spot. So, obviously some games mattered that they lost, but hey, it's baseball for you. But you look at it like this. It's a step in the right direction for the team. They got young studs coming up. They got great international players coming over and showing up and contributing instantly. The team as a whole have done the right things. And I think that they're building a team to compete in the playoffs very soon. And also, too, to produce for us in fantasy. The whole reason why we're here, not just talk real baseball, right? Like all the additions, like all the call-ups that are going to happen over the next year or so. And I want to start off with the big name. We've been talking about him, I think, literally every week so far. It's Pete Crow-Armstrong. If you're new to the show, I'm going to break them down for you, but other than that, you can probably skip right through. There is timelines, so you just move on to the next one if you've watched the last couple of shows. But if you haven't listened before, I'm a huge fan of Pete Crow-Armstrong. Let's put it that way. Pete Crow is somebody that I do have some high hopes for. It's the same song and dance with me. He wasn't able to really show up and be good when he first got the call this season. He actually kind of sucked and got set down, essentially. I'm going to pull up his stats now. But essentially, it didn't really pan out whatsoever. And then he came out in the second half and was really able to adjust the bigs and say, hey, I'm here. Because in the first half, he played about 46 games and had about 174 at-bats. 158 at-bats. He had 11 runs, 5 doubles, 3 triples, 3 bombs, 17 ribs, 17 stolen bases, but batted a nice 203, which is horrendous. Contributed in spots, but wasn't really doing what you really wanted him to do, and wasn't somebody you can really start, and you were really just clogging a roster spot. So he was more of when he was hot, you ran him. When he wasn't, you were dropping him. That second half was a big difference. He came up, he had about 214 at bats. He had 35 runs. He had 8 doubles, 3 triples, 7 bombs, 30 ribs, 10 stolen bases, was batting .262, made the adjustment at the batting average department. Walk to strikeout still wasn't great on the season. I feel like that'll take a step forward as well. But you look at it his first month in April and March, which, it was very minimal, 5 games, was a really nice kick. But then, May was sucked, June sucked, July sucked. That's when, it was sent down a little bit too. It was coming up and down. And then August, he just went full ham, batted .314 that month. 4 home runs through that time and 6 stolen bases. And then, going down the playoff stretch, you were making that push. He still contributed. He had 10 ribs, 3 runs, 3 bombs, 2 doubles, and 15 runs. The kid was contributing. wasn't super elite, but it was enough. And then you go and you look at what his prospect pedigree is. You're like, man, this kid could be good for you. And I think he will be. Dom has him ranked in the top 25 at outfield. And I think I'm going to have a similar ranking. I think he's going to be a nice, solid, OF3 for me. I don't know if I'll trust him as my OF2, but who knows? But, you look at what the kid's pedigree was, you look at 2022, and, through 423 at bats, he had 89 runs, he had 20 doubles, 10 triples, 16 home runs, 61 ribs, 32 stolen bases. He batted 312 and was just truly a contributor. Now, I don't think the 312 is kind of more real, is a realistic expectation in terms of batting average. I think you're probably looking more like 265, 270. I think is more of a realistic expectation in the batting average category. That's where I haven't statted out at. I think the stolen base upside is serious. You can have a 40-year in that, and then the power I think is kind of legit. You even look at 2023, where he had 438 at bats. He had 20 home runs. You add 100 at bats, and you can probably see about 5 more home runs. And that's just on like, a kid that's only going to be 23 next year. So you just got to kind of like take it with a grain of salt in terms of, not a grain of salt. I'm sorry. You got to take it as a perspective as he gets older, gets bigger and stronger, because that's what happens as you get older. I may be fat in my 30s, but I'm also a lot stronger than I was. Same thing goes for a growing man, not only playing in a competitive sport and working out every day, but just as a man himself. And I think that he's going to take a step forward. He's going to be a serious contributor. I think, we're going to see close to 30 home runs in his prime, if not a 30 run home run season, along with the high stolen base upside and pretty decent batting average to boot. So I think Pete Crow-Armstrong is going to be somebody where we're really going to be targeting coming down the line in the next couple of years as somebody that's going to be an elite fantasy option, probably like a, not next year, but maybe in the years come, a top 3 round pick. Without a doubt. I think that's where it's going to be. He's going to be locked and loaded around there. I'm a big fan. This kid has some serious potential. Yeah, can't stress it enough. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about Seiya Suzuki. Seiya Suzuki, coming in, I believe it's his second year with the Cubs, third year. I apologize, Seiya. And we expected a lot more from him. Let's put it that way, just based off of the fact of what he came in, what the expectations were from coming over from Japan. And, obviously he's not a young blood either. He's 29 this season, going to be 30 next year. And, kind of like mid, 512 at bats, 74 runs, 27 doubles, 6 triples, 21 bombs, 73 ribs, 16 stolen bases, batted about 283, an OBP of 366, a slug of 482, and an OPS of 848. Like, it's good numbers, not what I thought. The ceiling, I don't think, is there. I originally had him ranked coming into the season. I think he's like a top 36 outfielder. I don't think he's that. I think he's more of like a 4 for me. I don't think that, he's getting these stolen base numbers up high enough along with the power to really contribute. And it doesn't look like he's really making an impact on runs and ribs. And we'll talk about the rest of the team, and you'll be like, okay, well, the runs and ribs really weren't down this year. I think they've improved, and I think they're only going to get better. But is he going to be somebody that's going to be able to take advantage of it? Also, he's going to be able to stay healthy enough too, because he did have some IL stints. I don't think of him as an elite option. But I don't think he's a bad option either. Low end OF3, high end OF4. But I'm not trusting him as a 2. I'm really not going to feel great walking away with him as my 3 unless I'm in like a 12 or 14 or 16 man league. Then it's like, okay, cool. And even in the 12 man, it's a little bit on the rougher side. Again, I'd prefer him as my 4 at that point. So, Seiya Suzuki's fantasy value for 2025, I think is not somebody I'm going to even try and draft in the top 100. I think he falls out to like top 120 to 130 at least for me. And I'll kind of just like approach it like that. There's obviously some upside, but I don't think we're going to see a special season that we all expected from him. When he first came over, unfortunately, but he's still a good player. He's still going to be good for that team. And, we'll see what the future brings. But right now, that's where I'm kind of projecting him early, at least. Coming up next, we got Cody Bellinger. What is our expectations for 2025? Nico Hoerner, does he still got it? What happened in the first half? And, what to do with Michael Busch. All that and more coming up next. With FanDuel, when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you can place your bets. You'll get started with a $200 bonus bet guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. And guys, since we're placing a bet and putting real money on the line, the only reward shouldn't just be to get that $200 bonus, right? We got to make that $5 bet count, right? So let's do that. So let's bet against the Giants this weekend. I'm going to tell you right now, they ain't looking hot for the team as a whole. So let's just bet against them. Always go money line against. Let's go under on the points. And, honestly, the only thing I would love to take on the over, but I don't think it's offered, is over on the field goals, because, they scored more field goals than they did touchdowns this year, and it's pretty pathetic. So bet against the Giants wholeheartedly, except from the league neighbors. That's where you can get your nice little parlay going. But guys, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you will get a guaranteed $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Are you watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day? Have you had to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make this switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or free on the Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. As this offseason unfolds, rely on our dynamic content. Get our redraft rankings, our dynasty rankings, or our prospect rankings, our sleepers, breakouts, busts, so much more than what we offer on this 30-minute podcast, that it's going to help you win your league. All right, so let's get back in it and, start talking some Cody Bellinger. Cody, man, interesting season, I got to say. I'm excited to have him kind of back. But it's not like fully back. It's not like, we're seeing 2019 Cody Bellinger where he had that 47 home run season, but it's good production. Obviously a step back from 2023, but I'm not mad at the production, but I'm also not excited to draft him. 516 at bats this year, 72 runs, 23 doubles, 3 triples, 18 home runs, 78 ribs, 9 stolen bases, and batted .266, 325 OBP, a 426 slug, and a 751 OPS. So, obviously took a step back. I don't understand why, truthfully, the underlying stats aren't too crazy or out of the norm in those regards. He's only 28 years old, so still in that prime, which is crazy because he's been in the league since 21 and been a stud since. And then everybody's just been waiting for it through those injuries. And, thought last year was going to be a nice resurgence and, really didn't fully fill out this year. I mean, runs and ribbies are down. But, hey, the status of the team, but again, I think they took a step forward, even though his numbers are down. Home runs, I'm surprised in. But I do like the fact that he still had a .266 batting average. The season didn't completely crumble. And, I'm going to look at he's probably going to be a lower end first baseman for me, or outfielder, depending on where, what platform you play on and if he's going to have that eligibility. But, for Cody Bellinger, I'm going to take him. I'm going to take the swing, but I'm going to pray that I don't have to leave the draft with him as a starter in either my outfield or first baseman position. I'd rather have him as my UT or something of the sort, just so that it's a little bit easier to kind of swallow the pill if the pick don't hit. Otherwise, I'm going to be avoiding him, I think, just for now, until I can kind of see what's going to happen in the in spring training to say otherwise. But yeah, Cody Bellinger, I'm not going to say is washed or on a downwards turn whatsoever. But what I will say is, this is just how sometimes things just work out with players like him, and he just hasn't been able to be consistent, I guess, is how I want to put it. Yeah, we look at. I'm pulling up the underlying stats. Yeah, he's just one of those things where, like, not much has really changed. He hasn't really hit the ball that hard over the last 2 years, but still managed to put up the 26 home runs last year. The only thing I will say is, like, the launch angle is pretty much down a good chunk, but that's really the only big deciding factor that's saying, hey, I didn't do what I was needed to do, and the bat speed is down. But I think that's all course corrected and possible by the end of the day. So maybe next year that we see a resurgence and we get a little bit of more of a discount on him. Let's hope, because I really hope the price isn't that high. I don't think there's much as a desirable in those regards. But let's move on. So about Nico Hoerner. Nico Hoerner, first half was kind of ugly. I saw him out on a few waiver wires this year, which was kind of bonkers for me. But at the same time, I can understand too. But I mean, a guy that you paid pretty much high draft capital for, he's not somebody I'm looking to drop essentially, especially that early in the season. But then he did turn it around. The second half was really nice, and even the first half, he really did, turn it around because I understand like he wasn't really getting the stolen bases you wanted in April. The run numbers really weren't there for him in May, and the batting average was kind of bad. He batted 250, 261, 230, and really didn't turn that around until the last 2 months of 280 and 355 in August and September. So like you look at it, you're like, okay, cool, but like as a whole season, it's really not an ugly numbers. You just gotta take it is what it is. Sometimes players just have a slow start and then they get rolling. Essentially, you know, is he managed to stay healthy the whole season, which is a big bonus right there. But 86 runs, a triple, 35 doubles, which is fantastic for those points leagues. 7 bombs, which what else were you expecting from him? His career high is 10 on his whole career. I don't think we were expecting much in that category. Ribs at 48, but he's never really been a ribby guy. Career high of 68. He's really just like an on base guy that then gets driven home. That's why he has the 86 runs. 31 stolen bases was fantastic in that. I'm not mad at 31 stolen bases. Obviously, you would have liked to see him do what he did in 2023, where he had 43, or at least get a little bit closer to that. But I'm not mad at 31. I think he still returned on the draft price just based off of that, and 273 batting average, just about like 10 points down from last year. You would have hoped that he would have hit the 280. It would have made it a little bit sweeter, and it wouldn't have felt as ugly. But hey, as long as he was able to finish at the end of the season, you're pretty much happy. Especially those last 2 months, if you owned him, he was definitely lights out for you and doing everything you drafted him to be. So, Nico Hoerner was still a solid, fantasy contributor in 2024, and definitely not mad with his performance or even owning him and drafting him. I'm gonna take the same approach, but I am gonna downgrade him. He's not somebody that I normally draft anyway. You look at it and you're pretty much just drafting him for 3 categories, right? He's going to get you runs. He's going to get you, stolen bases, and he's going to have a decent batting average. He chips in the ribs. He chips into like maybe twice, 2 weeks out of the month, a home run, and it is what it is. To pay what we were paying, I think it was like a 4th or 5th round pick for Nico Hoerner. It's kind of like a pointless pick for me. You're not mad at the pick, like I said. He returned on his value because of the stolen bases. But me personally, I'm always trying to grab the higher upside and whatnot around that kind of pick, because there is guys that fall into that can have way higher upside. If I had ADP in front of me, I would probably be able to rattle off about 3 or 4 names that went around him that probably performed well above their ADP, whereas Nico Hoerner kind of just stayed and he was a high floor, low ceiling play, and you went really safe with it. And that's really all he is. He's captain safety at the end of the day. So is what it is with Nico Hoerner. I'm going to move on to Michael Busch, acquired by the from the Dodgers. Finally, he was released from being Dodgered, and instant he was fantastic. He was never a guy you fully owned. You drafted him a smidge bit, but you really weren't counting on him whatsoever. He was a late, dart throw at the end of the draft, essentially. And instance, he was fantastic, I gotta say. And the season ending numbers aren't bad either. 496 at bats, 73 runs, 28 doubles, 2 triples, 21 bombs, 65 ribs, 2 stolen bases, batted 248, a 335 OBP, a slug of 440, and an OPS of 775. I'm a big fan of him. I think he does have what it takes to actually be a contributor in the bigs. Like you look at his prospect history, right? 2023, when he was all the rage at age 25. He had 390 at bats, 85 runs, 26 doubles, 4 triples, 27 bombs, 90 ribs, 4 stolen bases, and batted 323. Even the year before, he had 32 home runs that year, 108 ribs, 118 runs, and was batting 274. He has been solid. I think the Cubs kind of robbed them blind. I don't know what they weren't seeing, but I think they were going in like Ray Charles and just not seeing anything. Michael Busch also just didn't have a place to play either. They weren't going to go and bench Muncy for him. They weren't going to go and bench, Freddie Freeman. They weren't going to go and bench anybody in the outfield either for Michael Busch. So, I mean, it was also a little bit of a roster clog, but Michael Busch deserved to play. I'm glad that he's not on that team. I think next year he's somebody that's going to be a sneaky pick that everybody's going, oh, he was good on the waiver wires, but he wasn't consistent. And then we're going to be drafting because you're going to be listening to us, and he's going to be like, oh, wow, he's going to be a sneaky pick next year. And that's exactly what Busch is going to be. So I'm excited to draft him. Coming up next, we're going to review, obviously, the two big pitching names of Shota Imanaga and Justin Steele, and maybe even cover a little Ian Happ. That's all coming up next. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the action in sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with injury insurance policies so your lineups stay in play. Even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half or doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup alive. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users to sign up today. PrizePicks puts the members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I get my money in 15 minutes. It's fantastic. Sign up today and use the code and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on real money this football season. Which player is going off, which one isn't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. And like I promised right before the break, I am getting back into it. I am going to skip over Hap if we have time. We're going to go and talk about him, but I really want to talk about Shota Imanaga. Imanaga really impressed me this year. Somebody I didn't think was going to be as good as he was. He was a great, prospect coming over, but I feel like what's his face? The dude that went to the Dodgers. Yamamoto. There we go. Sorry, brain fart. It's been a long day. I work a full-time job on top of this. Would overshadow him and, kind of felt like, other guys that came over when Ohtani was coming over and things like that kind of just didn't really pan out. And Imanaga proved us all wrong. Had a fantastic season, 173 innings pitched, 174 strikeouts, a nice 291 ERA with a 102 whip. Fantastic season from him. Obviously, his FIP, fielding independent pitching, is about a little less than a run higher than his actual ERA. FIP is just like a pitching indicator if you had an average defense behind you, plus, whether you got lucky or not, things like that too, but whatever. Anyway, but I'm still going to ride with it. I think he's, more of going to be in his future, like a low threes ERA with his strikeouts of about a little over, right over a K per 9, if not right on the money. And he's going to be fantastic. I think that he's, even though he's 30, what is my biggest saying on the show? If you're new to the show, I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm that grandpa that just keeps, saying the same sayings over and over. But essentially, as pitchers get older, they get better. So him being 30 does not scare me away. It's not like a batter where it's that late age breakout and they can't really, maintain it or they don't repeat the season the next year. It's different with pitchers. You get smarter, you get more mature, you're able to do it. It's chess up there. And you got to really, there's a lot more that goes into your game than hitting behind the plate. So Imanaga, I think, is going to be fantastic. I'm big on him. I wouldn't be surprised to have him in my top 20 next year. I'm really, like I said, excited to draft this kid. He's going to be so good. Imanaga, big fan. Let's see if I can get a little bit more. I really do want to do a little bit of a deep dive on him. Imanaga. Oh, yeah, Matt, use the right keyboard. Here we go. So, let's take a look at it. Let's break it down, right? He did give up hard contact. He was giving up, an average exit velocity 88.6 miles an hour, but not like atrocious either. It's not like where it's elite, but it's right under it, like 89 miles an hour is where you get that red, where it's like elite, so it's like by 0.4 miles off. His fastball velocity at 91.5, but that really doesn't mean anything. He's just the style of pitcher he is. He gets guys to chase quite a bit at 34.8% of the time. He's whiffing about 28.2% of the time, getting the strikeout about 25% of the time, and walking guys at a very low rate of 4%. I just wish he would produce a little bit more ground balls, suppress the hard contact, because he's getting about hard contact on his pitches about 39.3% of the time, and allowing guys to barrel up about 8.6. But you know what? That's first year in the league, and you know what? It is what it is. You got to just kind of look at it with that, kind of just say, okay, well, he was successful with all these little mistakes and things that, like, obviously you'd like to see a little bit more. And how does it, with a little bit of adjustment with the MLB behind him and making those adjustments, I'm sure that things are going to get corrected and we're going to see even a step forward from him. So it should be good. And you know what I like about him too? like he has like let's count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pitches he threw this year. 8 different pitches. Full arsenal. He throws a four-seam fastball, he throws a splitter, a split finger, a sweeper, a changeup, a curveball, sinker, cutter, slow curve. It's interesting. He can throw all this at you at an incredible rate, but really does lean on the four-seam fastball and the split finger. Throws a four-seam fastball about 52% of the time, and split finger about 30.6. Throws a sweeper about 7.7, and everything else is kind of just like, oh, I threw it in there, and oh, you weren't expecting it, so cool. But he did put away guys with a sinker about 44.4% of the time on the put away every time he threw it. So that's a really nice, consistent, you know, you know, attack on that. So, he is able to poke you around and be like, okay, I've seen this, I've seen this, I've seen this. And oh God, what happened? Oh God, that was not what I was expecting. So it's interesting. I'd like to see a little bit more uptick and, him throwing the change up a little bit more and mixing in either the sweeper or even the curveball in here a little bit more. And then, kind of scaring people a little bit with the curve and the slow curve. So let's see what he does. Hopefully he can, get these pitches a little bit more involved next year and, kind of stop leaning on things that he's comfortable throwing and kind of mix up that pitch mix a little bit more. And that could seriously, put him above the boys from the men. And Imanaga can take that step forward if he can kind of bring in that arsenal and kind of spread the wealth a little bit. So Imanaga is definitely interesting. And the more I talk about him, the more I get excited about it, and the more I'm seeing it, where I'm probably going to have him much higher than I really expected to. Because man, like I said, it gets exciting. This is how my brain works, right? So like you're seeing me, I'm reviewing this, and I'm doing some of this live. Like I've looked at it a little briefly, I picked out the names, right? But you know, sometimes on the show I start talking myself into a guy and sometimes talks myself even to go higher on them. So Imanaga is somebody I'm literally sitting here and the wheels are spinning of how high I can actually get this kid and who am I feeling comfortable over. Yeah, I'm excited. Let's put it that way. Let's talk about Justin Steele. Justin Steele, a guy that, was drafted a little bit higher than I was comfortable with. Had a great season. Do not get me wrong. This is no poo-poo on him. Managed to start 24 times. Was hurt just a smidge through about 134 innings, 135 strikeouts, a 3.07 ERA, with a 109 WHIP. Fantastic season. You can't knock on it. He was as effective as he was the year prior. Honestly, the pace was identical. I actually improved on the WHIP just a pretty good amount. I'm impressed. FIP is kind of in line. He had a 3.07 ERA, but a FIP of 3.23. I'm not mad at that at all. He's a good pitcher. Being that he's 28 years old too, I think that he's going to be a solid fantasy contributor. I don't think he'll ever be a 1, but he will be a solid 2 for me next year. I think that he has done it. He has now proven to me that, hey, he is ready to be anointed, even though you're looking at 3 seasons of pretty good stats. But now I have a baseline, and now I can see that he can repeat an elite level. And I'm just hoping that the health can stick around and he can start 32 times and be a weekly contributor for all of us. But Justin Steele is probably going to be somebody that I'm going to target. He's a safe option, I feel. And I think with the team taking step forwards, there's more win potentials. There's more everything potential with Justin Steele. And I'm just, like I said, overall just incredibly impressed and happy. And now feel comfortable drafting him. Now watch him have a terrible season. It's like what happened with Gaussman with Dom and I. The first year we buy in and then he takes an absolute flop. So who knows? But I do like Justin Steele. I think that he has a good career ahead of him and going to be a great fantasy option in the coming years, and starting with 2025. So Justin Steele is going to be a draft for me without a doubt. Yeah, guys, this is all I got for today. It was actually a fun show talking about the Cubs and their fun team. I think the next year is going to be fun. I think we're going to get a lot of fantasy contributions from them. I think that they have some guys also on in the prospects in the farm system that is going to be interesting as well, like Matt Shaw and Cade Horton, that are going to also add to the value and the depth of this team. That's going to make them not only good on the field and in real baseball, but also for fantasy. Those are guys that are notable net mentions that I'm excited. Dom and I talked about both these guys over the last year. So the names to keep out and keep a look for. But I think, there are a lot of good days coming ahead for this team, and Matt Shaw might be the lead guy. Even I like him more than I like Pete Crow-Armstrong as a prospect, so it's saying something. But yeah, we'll talk more about them, as we get more information of what their trajectory looks like. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. Check us out on Subtext and see what we offer on there. And I know we're your first listen each and every day, but what I want you to do is check out our boy Sully. Gonna be covering the World Series pretty darn great. He's over at Locked On MLB. Check him out. He puts on a great show, but first, make sure to watch us first. We're first, but then check him out, okay? But guys, again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Peace out.